Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. The public can attend tonight's meeting in person or at the George DeSierro City and County Buildings Council Chambers located at 1 Tacoma Drive, or watch live on Channel 8 and through streaming on Broomfield's website, broomfield.org/live. The public may also participate in public comment either in person or by calling 855-695-3744 and pressing *3 to be placed in the queue for comment. Screeners will ask callers for their first and last name, neighborhood, and the agenda item the caller would like to comment on. If you'd like to speak on more than one item on tonight's agenda, you'll need to press *3 each time to be placed back in the queue for comment. Public comment will be limited to 90 minutes total per item. The first 1 through 15 participants in the queue have 3 minutes to speak. The next 16 through 25 in the queue have 2 minutes, and if time remains, the next 26 plus participants in the queue have 1.5 minutes to speak. For our hearing impaired residents present, we have wireless headsets available through the AV team in the back of the council chambers. Election ballots have been mailed and are being accepted, and there is a drop box located outside this building, which is used as a polling place. Per state law, individuals may not advocate for the election or defeat of a candidate or ballot measure, either inside a polling place or within 100 feet of an entrance to a polling place or drop box. That prohibition includes these council chambers because it's within the building. Therefore, individuals are not allowed to verbally advocate for candidates or ballot measures inside this building and in the council chambers. This includes during public comment. Additionally, individuals may not wear pins, t-shirts, hats, and other apparel that displays the name or likeness of any candidate who is on the ballot or bearing the number, title, subject, or logo of the ballot issue or question that is on the ballot. And we appreciate everyone's cooperation with this state law. The City Council meeting is called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Delgadillo.
She's virtual. Let's see if she's on. Do you see Councilmember Delgadillo? She's on.
Okay. Henkel.
Here.
Jezierski.
Here.
Leslie.
Here.
Lim. Here. Marsh Holshan.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
And Ward.
Here.
Thank you. A quorum is present. Will everyone please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. In an effort to keep order for tonight's meeting, I ask council members to limit their comments to 5 minutes. If council members are given an opportunity to speak for a second time on an item, they should limit their comments to 2 minutes. And we'll plan on a 10-minute break around 8 p.m. We'll begin with council's review and approval of this evening's agenda. Council may add or remove items from the consent agenda, or council may revise the order of business for a meeting. Does any member of council have any comments or questions regarding this evening's agenda? Councilmember Schaff.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move item 11D, ordinance number 2220, which concerns the open space district, parks, recreation, and open lands district. This is a first reading. So I'd like to move that to the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are there any objections to this agenda being approved as modified? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. The first item under petitions and communications this evening is a proclamation declaring October 24th, 2023 as a Precious Child Day in Broomfield. I had to make an exception on the applause for that. Will the representatives here to accept the proclamation please come and meet Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski at the podium? Welcome to you all, and go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm the Chief Communications Officer, Courtney Wickberg, and with me, I have our co-CEO and founder, Karina Martin, our co-CEO and president, Eric Gleason, our COO, Nicole Everman, and our board chairman, Jaylene Coonsey with me today.
Thank you all for being here. I will summarize the proclamation and then I'll turn it over to you guys to make some remarks. This year, A Precious Child celebrates its 15th year of serving children in need. As a Broomfield-based nonprofit organization, A Precious Child has remained steadfast in its mission to provide children in need with opportunities and resources to empower them to achieve their full potential. In 2008, A Precious Child's founder and CEO, Karina Martin, met with local leaders to discuss need in the community and formulated a shared vision of how they could embark on supporting those who needed the help most. A Precious Child has grown exponentially since its first year of serving just over 50 children out of Karina's garage on my street. In 2022 alone, it served more than 57,000 children and 10,000 adult caregivers. A Precious Child's programming efforts have expanded to encompass serving children with resource navigation, holistic support services, essential items, school supplies, holiday gifts, educational opportunities, and access to the extracurricular activities through its Cradle to Career initiatives. These initiatives, along with partnerships with over 300 human service-based agencies, help bridge the gap in a child's unmet needs and education, so every child may become a secure, self-reliant, and contributing community member. A Precious Child is an extraordinary organization that provides a critical service to our community's children in need. Their partnership with our city is one we cherish, and we wish them many, many more years of furthering their mission of serving children in need. Therefore, as mayor, I hereby declare and proclaim October 24th, 2023 as a Precious Child Day in Broomfield. Would our representatives like to make any remarks?
I would just like to thank the city and county of Broomfield for being our home. We feel so incredibly honored to have started in Broomfield and have continued to grow and serve the community, but we can't do it alone. And we rely so heavily on the community and the volunteers and the donors. And so much of that is from Broomfield. And so we just thank you for that.
Yeah, just thank you guys for the support over the years. Appreciate it. I see many faces that volunteer at A Precious Child, and we are so grateful for all of you. Thank you to, my two favorite people up here. So anyway, thank you so much for this amazing honor. We are so blessed in Broomfield, and we appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you too. So we're going to take public comments on this item. If anyone who would like to be heard, just come on up to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes, no pressure. Then I'll go to council. Does any member of council have any comments or questions? Councilmember Henkel.
Yeah, I think I speak for a lot of us, but I know that we have loved volunteering there, showing up for people. And I have particularly loved the way that you let families really shop with dignity and equity. Many of our Afghan and Ukrainian families have been served by you, and a lot of them now are up on their feet and they are no longer asking for like rental assistance, and they say they want to volunteer back. And so that has been really meaningful to us, and we look forward to future partnerships. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Lim.
I just wanted to pass on congratulations for your wonderful event fundraiser on Saturday, which a few of us were privileged to attend. And I especially wanted to pass along my appreciation to the keynote speaker, Richard Kate, who just did a wonderful job of expressing his feelings, his appreciation for the help of a precious child, and for conveying his story of perseverance through a difficult childhood. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Marsh-Holshan.
Thank you. I just want to thank you for all the work that you do. As a kid, I grew up in poverty and often knew what it was like not to have clothes that fit and school supplies and sports equipment. And what you do is so amazing and for the community. So thank you.
Thank you. And I would just like to echo that you give hope, you inspire, you take a chance when nobody else would on these kids, and you've made a difference in so many lives. So thank you. And also, I forgot the lead. We want to take this opportunity to announce that Broomfield City Council and staff are going to be taking part in a precious gift program this holiday season to help provide gifts to children who would otherwise go without. Please consider participating in this wonderful program and help give these children a holiday to remember. To learn more, you can visit A Precious Child's website at apreciouschild.org. Thank you. So, next is a proclamation declaring November 11th through 18th, 2023 as Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week. Will the representatives here to accept the proclamation please come and meet Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski at the podium. Thank you for joining us this evening. If you would like to introduce yourselves, Marty or Dana. Dana, you go first.
We're both pointing at each other. Yes, so thank you. So I'm Dana Scott. I'm with Broomfield Fish. We have Marty Dormish, and with the Refuge, we have Chris. With Holy Trinity Anglican Church, we have Lori Lane, who has been a participant of many different services across Broomfield, who's also just plain awesome. Who else? And you know, Precious Child is in the room, so we can acknowledge them because they do this kind of work too. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. I'll summarize the proclamation and then I'll let you guys make some remarks. The City and County of Broomfield recognizes the importance of increasing awareness of the broad reach of homelessness and hunger and demanding bold action from a broad coalition of community and state partners across government, business, the nonprofit sector, and citizens alike. In partnership with the City and County of Broomfield, many organizations are committed to building well-being by connecting residents to available services. These organizations include a Broomfield Fish, Community Food Share, We Don't Waste, The Refuge, A Precious Child, Project Angel Heart, and Broomfield Meals on Wheels. Hunger and homelessness are solvable issues, and every resident is encouraged to take action such as volunteering, donating needed items, and supporting efforts by public leaders to increase affordable housing opportunities. Food security, with the goal of making homelessness and hunger history within our community, within our state, and within our lifetime. Therefore, as mayor, I hereby declare and proclaim November 11th through 18th, 2023 as Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week within our state and in Broomfield. Would the representatives like to make any comments?
I think a couple of us might speak.
Please do.
So Dana Scott with Broomfield Fish and also a resident of Broomfield. And I just want to thank everyone for acknowledging this issue because it's easy to forget about here in Broomfield. And wanted to let folks know just three really important things. The first is that hunger and housing instability in our community is actually higher than ever, surpassing the need even during the pandemic, which I don't think a lot of people realize. In our fiscal year of 2023, our organization served more than 13,000 unduplicated Broomfield residents, over half of whom actually were children under the age of 18. We also gave out more than 1.5 million pounds of food in the last fiscal year to prevent residents from going hungry. And all of that happening at a time when fewer dollars and donations are actually coming into our organization and into many of our nonprofits since the pandemic. So for the first time ever, Fish actually had to dip into our reserves in order to make sure that there was enough food to give out. And that's just food. Marty's going to talk a little bit more about housing. The second point I wanted to make is that in pop culture today, there's this thing called boy math and girl math. I don't know if anybody's ever seen that. Look it up. It's on TikTok, or you can just Google search. There's also what I like to call self-sufficiency math. And in that world, the math isn't mathing. What it takes to make ends meet is actually a lot more than you might suspect. And according to the 2022 self-sufficiency standards that is put together by the Colorado Center on Law and Policy, a single person living in Broomfield would need more than $41,000 a year annually to subsist. And a single parent with an infant and toddler, that would actually take, and I'm glad people are sitting, actually almost $108,000 a year. And I encourage people to look that up, look up those self-sufficiency standards, because I often get asked why we're seeing such a huge need. And it's because you can't actually make those ends meet. The math just doesn't add up. And then I want to just read a quick thank you from one of our fish participants, because we tried to get someone to come tonight. It was a tough time to get people to come. But I wanted to read this thank you note that came to Fish. And it says, I want all of you wonderful people at Fish to know how much I appreciate everything you do and all of your hard work. You make my life better just by caring. If it wasn't for all of you, a lot of people would have nothing to eat. I want to thank you again for all of your love, caring, and dedication to the Broomfield community. It makes so many people's lives easier, and it makes the city a better place to live. And I also want to urge people to take action during this time. November 11th is actually our turkey and ham drive. We would love to have people come and donate. You can check that out on our website. Give time, volunteer. As Precious Child said, a lot of nonprofits are really needing donations of both time and goods. So I would encourage people to get involved and learn more. And I'm going to turn it over to Marty.
Thank you, Dana.
Thank you, Dana, and good evening, everyone. I'm Martin Dormish, and I'm a Minister of Presence, Justice, and Memory at the Refuge. I'm also a North Morris Estates resident and a longtime advocate for functional housing stability in Broomfield. I'm going to talk really fast because I have a lot to say tonight. I'd like to thank the members of City Council and CCOB staff for tonight's proclamation, and I'm especially grateful to all who worked so hard recently to ensure full funding for this winter's severe weather activation program, or SWAP effort, run by our partners at Almost Home. SWAP provides vital humanitarian assistance in the form of hotel vouchers on extremely cold nights for local residents who are experiencing homelessness. The number of vouchers able to be offered is budget limited and not enough to help all our neighbors who are outside. But SWAP 2023-2024 is a much more substantial resource than we were able to offer our most vulnerable neighbors even 5 years ago. I remember a time not long ago when this body and many city staff refused to even acknowledge that homelessness existed in our community. That was largely due, I believe, to our decades-long practice when Broomfield residents had exhausted their own resources and fallen into severe housing instability or homelessness to export them to shelters in Denver and Boulder. To use a biblical metaphor, we washed our hands of them. As I detail in the Sweep Report 2.0 Housing from Below in Broomfield, Colorado, USA, published in the spring of 2022 and available at everydayepics.com, at any one time, there are about 200 people experiencing homelessness right here in our community. Since 2019, 5 people have died while unhoused in Broomfield. Their names and ages were James, 59, Randy, 55, David, 67, Brittany, 66, and Rich, 61. 3 of them graduated from BHS. 2 of them served in the armed forces. All of them lived here for many years. Just a few weeks ago, I met a man named B, who lived in affordable housing, senior housing in Broomfield, but fell on hard times and was unable to pay his rent. And he has ended up sleeping outside since then and carrying his remaining belongings with him around on a cart. Just last week, I reconnected with a local veteran who's experiencing homelessness outside, all while dealing with severe neuropathy and having trouble walking. He sleeps outside not far from here. Just today, we had an unhoused guest at the Refuge Cafe who had a medical emergency and had to be taken to the hospital because he hadn't had a way to pick up or pay for the medical prescription that he needed. According to my colleague Dana Scott from Fish, everyone they see at Fish is cost burdened or severely cost burdened, meaning they spend more than the rule of thumb recommended 30% of their income on housing expenses. And she says that is the #1 reason for so many Broomfielders needing Fish's help with food, financial assistance, transportation, and more. She also shared with me that Fish had to turn away 60% of the people needing rental assistance in fiscal year 2023 because they didn't have enough financial resources for everyone. That's 3 out of every 5 Broomfield families who requested assistance, meaning Fish had to prioritize who they could help And that serves as a warning sign, I believe, that we as a community may be on the cusp of even higher rates of homelessness in the months to come. I hear similar reports of being more stretched than ever from other agency partners. And we certainly feel that at the Refuge Cafe. The reality is that a committed core of advocates and on-the-ground agencies have been pushing the same boulder up the same hill, fighting the effects of ballooning housing costs and relatively stagnant blue-collar wages over and over and over again for years. It's often rewarding work, but at the same time, it's discouraging to unceasingly encounter the same snafu system of income and housing disparities alongside successive waves of vulnerable and newly displaced residents over and over and over again. We need help, much, much more help, and not for some obscure need. All up and down the Front Range, we are seeing this need voiced. Affordable housing was the #1 concern voiced by respondents to the CCOB's 2021 community survey, and it's consistently at the top of all our lists as a priority. No one I know who is experiencing homelessness ever thought they would be in that situation. And none of the stably housed people I know who have children or other relatives or friends who are experiencing homelessness ever thought they'd know anyone in that situation either. So on the occasion of receiving this proclamation and the emphasis that goes with it, I'd like to challenge this body and my fellow Broomfield residents to undertake long-lasting action to address the local challenge of severe housing instability and homelessness. Council, I would ask that in your current makeup and your soon-to-be updated makeup, that you seriously consider putting a 0.25% sales tax measure toward temporary and transitional housing supports and functional housing stability for all Broomfielders on the fall 2024 ballot. I'm modeling this proposal after the voter-approved 0.25% sales tax that has been on our books since the 90s to preserve and maintain our great open spaces. If we can invest in nature and our community's outdoor spaces, we certainly can invest in offering a hand up to our most vulnerable human neighbors. This is a crucial issue, not least because the pots of ARPA and other funding currently used to pay for SWAP will be gone in another year or two. And it's incumbent upon us in our community to prepare a new funding mechanism and line item in the city budget in perpetuity to assist our neighbors in need. Budgets are moral documents that reflect the community's values and priorities, and I would urge you to keep that in mind as you engage in this issue. Please give our community the chance to act robustly so that we can all meet at some future council meeting to offer a proclamation that homelessness has effectively ended in Broomfield. In fact, we are already on the cusp of ending veteran homelessness here, and with more support, we could end homelessness for single mothers and their children, victims of domestic violence, retirees, and many others. So on behalf of the 200 or so people who are at this moment in the rain, beginning to hunker down in their sleeping bags, tents, vehicles, and other ad hoc shelters within Broomfield's borders, thank you for acknowledging their existence and for acknowledging the housing stability challenge that we face. Please consider and understand that what's needed in this moment and in the seasons ahead is an honest and full engagement with our actual challenge and what it will take to meet that challenge fully. The time for piecemeal solutions is past. We can do better. Together we can and we must. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Would anyone else like to speak? Please, Mr. Dewhurst.
Yes, Chris Dewhurst, Deputy Director, Human Services. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you for the proclamation. Human Services, some of our strategic priorities are really whole family success and doing it in partnership with our community. And as noted here today, we can't do this alone. We do need our community, and we appreciate and are grateful for our community nonprofits and partners at the table helping us to tackle these issues. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Does take a village. So would anyone from the public like to comment on this agenda item? Now would be the time. Well, you're more than public, but go ahead, Ms. Lane.
My name is Lori Lane and my neighborhood is all of Broomfield. Moved here in June of '97. This is home. For about 3 more days, I am one of Broomfield's homeless because I do have housing now. I just can't move in yet. But if it wasn't for Broomfield Fish, for the refuge, I would not be here. They believed me when I did not believe in myself. They trusted me when I did not trust myself. I'm alive because of all of you guys, and some of you know me. And I want to say thank you. My kids are grown. They are, but I do refer people to you guys all the time because I am a volunteer advocate over at the refuge. So thank you guys also, because this community of Broomfield has given me a purpose in my life that I've never had. I'm 62, so that's a long time to not have a purpose. I love all of you guys. I love Broomfield. Everybody start listening, start saying hi to people. We're nice people. This is what homeless looks like. There's a few people here that are homeless also that come to the shelter, as we call it, because that's all we have. We have the refuge during 3 days a week. Start helping out, guys. This is all of our community. We need everybody to help with this. It should be a crime to be homeless and hungry. Thankfully for fish, I've never gone hungry. As you can tell, I'm not hungry. And thank you for this. This is so important because it shows that we do matter. We do count. We're human beings. All we want is a compassionate helping hand up. I've never asked for a handout, and neither have a lot of us. We just want to be recognized as human beings. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lane. Anyone else? Well, then I'll go to council comments or questions next. Anyone from council? Councilmember Henkel.
I always speak on these items. They do hit home and I never stop tearing up. And I think the big reason is, Lori, you do matter. You really do. You and people like my own mother who traveled with truck drivers for 3 years. I grew up unseen, unhoused, sleeping in garages. I wore my older brother's clothes until I was old enough to know different. I figured it out later. But I will tell you that anyone who is unhoused does matter. I have received nasty emails saying, oh, your mother was one of them. And that's when we start talking about othering others. And that's not fair. And that's not okay. Just because my mother had a mental illness and she couldn't stay in one place at one time for very long, I tried to house her and I couldn't. There's better medications that are available. Out in Aurora, they're starting some new programs out there that's more accessible for those who have mental illnesses, and accessibility too. I made sure that we get transportation out there as well. So this job up here on council isn't just approving small things. We do great things, but you guys do the greatest things. And I'm just really proud of all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member questions or comments? Councilmember Shao.
I just want to give a shout out to all of our nonprofit agencies in the room and outside the room that do this very important work day in and day out. I should say evening and evening out and night in and night out. It's very important work and deep respect for all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Marshallson.
Yeah, I echo that. Thank you for everything you do. It's so vitally important. There are so many issues that we locally have no control over when it comes to the costs of housing and instability, but we can do more and we should. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I appreciate your call to action and your challenge, and it's definitely something that is top of mind. So we appreciate you bringing it to the forefront, talking about the hard numbers and the difficult conversations. We need to have those. So thank you all for being here. Our final proclamation this evening is declaring November 2023 as Lung Cancer Awareness Month. Will the representatives here to accept the proclamation please come and meet Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski at the podium. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, Jason Balling, Director of Public Health.
Thank you. She's doing.
Good evening, Allison Long with Broomfield Public Health.
Good evening, Adrienne Hollins, Broomfield Public Health.
Thank you all for being here. I'll summarize the proclamation first. According to the Centers for Disease Control, lung cancer is the leading cause of cancer death among men and women in the United States, as well as in Colorado. Lung cancer accounts for more deaths in the US than colon cancer, breast cancer, and prostate cancer combined. In Broomfield alone, there were 148 new lung cancer cases and 84 deaths between 2016 and 2020. Lung cancer is preventable, and there are a number of steps that residents can take to protect themselves and their loved ones. The City and County of Broomfield is committed to promoting early detection and prevention through lung cancer screening, preventing tobacco use, and eliminating exposure to radon. Therefore, as mayor, I hereby declare and proclaim November 2023 as Lung Cancer Awareness Month in the City and County of Broomfield. And would our distinguished representatives like to make some remarks?
Yeah, I'll just keep it brief, but again, lung cancer is something that we continue to see as a leading cause of death, and our recommendations are pretty clear. If you are using tobacco, please consider quitting, especially this upcoming month with the Great American Smokeout. And secondly, if you haven't had your home tested for radon, please visit broomfield.org/radon for more information on getting your home tested and mitigating it if you need to. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Director Volling. Allison, y'all good? Okay, well, thank you all for being here. Anybody from the public want to comment on this item? Going to council next, Councilmember Lim.
I ran across some legislation that was just passed this year that created tenant rights to notification of radon testing by a landlord. And I thought that was very interesting from the renter's perspective. Do you know if we've done any publicity on that, is what I was wondering.
I'll need to go back and check on that, Councilmember Lim. I can tell you last year, we did a media or communications campaign on radon awareness and testing. And secondly, had tests available for people to use at-home tests. That's something we're definitely going to consider again this year. And we've applied for funding from CDPHE to support that. So we'll make sure to build that into our communications if we haven't done it.
Great, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you again for helping us bring awareness to this very important issue. We're moving on to general public comment now, and this is an opportunity for the public to comment on matters other than the items already listed on tonight's agenda. Is there anyone who would like to be heard? Please come up to the podium and state your name and neighborhood for the record and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. Adam Hunt. I live at 10355 Dover Street, Broomfield, Colorado, 80021. You can mail me a Christmas card if you'd like to. The apartment's 1237.
Well, in the future, if you want to keep it, you can just say your neighborhood. We
I
kind of
have
did.
no idea what the neighborhood.
Okay, then never mind.
But the neighborhood
You're
is
fine.
For sure. So I would like to spend my allotted time discussing the issues of leaded fuel at the Rocky Mountain Metro Airport that has grabbed some attention recently, but also appears to be a lingering concern based on articles I've seen online. From these articles posted online, it seems that Rocky Mountain Metro Airport has been pretty responsive with their ambitions to be the first airport in Colorado that doesn't rely on leaded fuel. But also from my understanding, this is going to take some time for this infrastructure to get implemented. So in the meantime, these increased levels of lead exposure will in all likelihood continue to rise until the complete shift is made to unleaded fuel. And from my understanding, this lead exposure can come from remnants on surfaces, as well as getting into the soil and potentially affecting water supplies. One article I stumbled upon actually quoted a local doctor's warning about how this could be our Flint. While I am not an expert in the sciences of lead exposure or anything like that, and cannot speak on the scientific nature of this, I do know a little bit about governmental bodies, especially in Michigan, where I was born and raised. I went to school down at Michigan State, and while I was at school at Michigan State, I worked for Clean Water Action, did a lot of canvassing on the ground in terms of the lead piping crisis and everything like that in Michigan. A large issue for Flint was governmental oversight, deception, and dishonesty. Specifically, as residents of Flint began to complain about the water, they were often taken for granted. They were told just to boil the water, hot water boiling, everything like that will get rid of it. But nothing of the sort was really helping, and a lot of residents were becoming ill and stuff like that. One story that I particularly remember is government officials of Flint and neighboring cities were actually instructed to stop drinking the tap water and were given sources of only bottled water, but they were still telling their residents that the water was safe to drink. The months and years of oversight, deception, and dishonesty by the government entities in Flint is a path that all government entities, including the city council, need to be wary of and not follow. This is a community that needs to be informed as to the state of lead on surfaces in the soil, in the water, etc., as the city and other citizens are made aware of these figures. Specifically, to stay on top of any potentially hazardous situations, there should be some comprehensive and consistent testing procedures, and the data collected should be readily available to the public, regardless of the levels that were picked up. Just like Rome wasn't built in a day, we understand that they can't fully shift their infrastructure, but in the meantime, we would like to know what the lead levels are and everything like that. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to be heard? And I don't see any online. So we'll move on. Councils and community and event updates are next. Does any member of council have an update this evening? Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Charter Review Committee met again on the 16th and had a robust discussion on many areas of the charter. The final meeting of the Charter Review Committee will be on the 6th of November. Hopefully be able to get through the rest of the remaining sections of the charter. And then we'll be presenting to council on the 14th of November, I believe is the date. And then all of the recommendations of the Charter Review Committee will come before council at that point, and then we get to decide what to do with it. So that's update. And then also I attended the CML Policy Committee meeting on the 13th. Robust discussion about different aspects of policy that are going to come up in the legislative session, including one that's looking at the home builders are going to sponsor a construction defect litigation or legislation. So that will be coming up. And then also there was a discussion on CML and CCI working together on land use, because we all know that's going to come back up. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. Just two things. First is a reminder for all residents that live in the Vantage Point townhomes and condos that Mayor Castriota, Councilmember Delgadillo, and myself will be having a town hall with you all this Thursday at 6 p.m. So just wanted to make a reminder for all those residents. And then lastly, the Northwest Parkway Public Highway Authority met earlier today, and we have been receiving checks from Civitas for the past few years now, because unbeknownst to the Parkway, over time they had acquired property that had lease rights that were associated with the extraction currently undergoing. The board voted to retain the checks and spend the money on infrastructure related to solar and anything else to reduce our carbon emissions and transition us to clean fleets, et cetera. So I just wanted to make council aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, for the Workforce Center, there is a multi-industry network and career fair tomorrow, October 25th from 2 to 4 at the Workforce Center. The timely catchphrase is, your job search shouldn't be scary. We can help. So probably don't wear your Halloween costume, but please come for the career fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. This last week, Broomfield continues to be a member of the Jefferson Parkway Public Highway Authority. Just as a reminder to the public and in council, we submitted our letter to withdraw from this organization in 2019 that has still not been completed by the Parkway Authority. However, this last week we met, we discussed a couple items. or a few items, I should say. We are finally getting we got our reports about the 2020 audit. We also had a 2023 budget amendment that passed well, I should say 4-2 with Broomfield voting no on that as we continue to be part of this organization, as well as the 2024 budget, which was also passed 4-2, Broomfield voting no on that. Just wanted to point out to my council colleagues that 2024 budget, about half the cost of that budget is to complete the 2021, 2022, and 2023 audits, with the rest of the costs associated with continuing operation of the authority on a minimal basis until market conditions for a new public-private partnership arise. So just wanted to put that report out there. Thank you.
Thank you, council member. Any other council member updates? I just have a quick one that's very timely. I got noticed that our congressional representative, Brittany Patterson, has just introduced a bill to combat street racing. And if any of us live near 36, you know, it's gotten really out of control. So the title of the bill is compelling. It's called They're Fast and We're Furious. And I hope to see that advance really quickly so we can get some relief. The bill would establish an FBI task force to help coordinate local, state, and federal responses to street racing, as well as develop best practices for prevention. Clever. All right, moving on. Council's consideration of the consent agenda is next. Earlier this evening, Councilmember Schaaf requested item 11D be moved to consent, and there were no objections. Further, the city and county attorney has requested that we pull item 7F. Therefore, the clerk will read the consent agenda items by title, and there'll be one opportunity for public comments and council questions and comments. Will the clerk please read agenda items 7A through 7I without 7F and 11D by title?
7A, approval of minutes from the regular meeting of October 10th, 2023. 7B, resolution number 2023-144, authorizing annual aggregate spending for office furniture and installation services with Interior Environments LLC. 7C, resolution number 2023-138, approving the agreement with Carollo Engineering Company, Inc. for design services for the wastewater facility expansion phase 1 project. 7D, resolution number 2023-140, authorizing an agreement with Grandview Landscape Irrigation for the Trails North Park irrigation upgrade. 7E, resolution number 2023-124, authorizing an agreement with the Government Finance Officers Association, GFOA, for enterprise resource planning, ERP system assessment, RFP development, and implementation advisory services. 7G, request for executive sessions regarding the city and county manager and city and county attorney's annual performance reviews. 7H, resolution number 2023-149, approving a second amendment with Almost Home Inc. for severe weather activation program services. 7I, resolution number 2023-139, approving the 2023 amendment to employment agreement with the city and county manager. And 11D, ordinance number 2220, amending section 17-07 OLPF, Open Lands and Public Facilities District within the Broomfield Municipal Code and adopting section 17-07.1, Open Space District, and section 17-07.2, Parks, Recreation, and Open Lands District. First reading.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with public comments on those items, starting with in person. If anyone would like to be heard, please come to the podium. I don't see any online either. So we'll move on to council member comments or questions. Does any member of council have any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Councilmember Schaaf.
I just have one quick question. So it was stated by the mayor that 7F was removed. I don't remember that being a part of the agenda setting process that happened earlier. So I'm just would like a little bit more clarification what happened with that.
I can give you a little more clarification. Our office, the city and county attorney, did request that be removed. We missed it when going over the agenda earlier today, but that is a request being made. That item needs to be pulled.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, before asking for a motion, I want to remind everyone that item 7G contains a request for executive sessions, which requires 2/3 approval of council. Is there a motion by council that the recommendations contained in the staff reports for items 7A through 7E, 7G through 7I, and 11D be approved? Councilmember Ward.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Anderson. Yes. Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel. Yes. Jazersky. Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holston,
Yes.
Schaff.
Yes.
And Ward.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. There is no business before the Board of Social Services this evening. And the first item under council business this evening is a public hearing in council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-128 regarding a monopine wireless facility in the Lambertson Farm subdivision. I'll now declare the public hearing open. We'll follow the city's standard public hearing procedures. First, staff will present a summary of the proposal. Next, we'll have the applicant's presentation. Then we'll ask for public comments and final comments from the applicant. And finally, questions from city council members. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council and community. Anna Burton-Zetti, co-leader of, this is such a mouthful, planning director and co-director of community development. Ms. Burton-Zetti, please introduce us to the item of a cell tower that looks like a tree.
Thank you. Yes, good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. If I could have the next slide, please. The subject proposal is a site development plan amendment and a use by special review for a wireless facility within the Lambertson Farms subdivision. The site is zoned Planned Unit Development, or PUD, and is located within filing 5 of the Lambertson Farms PUD area. The proposed structure will be located directly to the rear of the existing King Soopers building and to the northwest corner of the site. The parcel directly north of this request is open lands. The wireless tower will be designated as designed as a faux pine tree, and that is done in order to enhance its visual appearance. And the parcel on which the tower is located is just over 9 acres. It's about 9.6 acres. But the area where the tower is really being located is limited to about 753 square feet. So that's the tower itself plus its ground equipment. The proposal meets all of the requirements of the code and no variances have been requested. The nearest residential house to this tower is about 700 feet to the east. Next slide, please. So here's a picture of a cell tower that looks like a pine tree. The applicant has provided renderings of what the proposed monopine will look like if it is approved and constructed. The tower is about 64 feet at its tallest point and will feature equipment enclosed at ground level. And this is also designed to allow for co-location of additional carriers on the monopine. So there could be 2 additional carriers. The equipment at the ground will be concealed within a brick screen wall with a wooden access gate. The applicant has indicated that this proposed facility for the first carrier that's on the monopine is designed is necessary to fill service gaps in the area. Next slide, please. The Broomfield Comprehensive Plan designation for this area is commercial, and monopines or cellular facilities co-located in commercial areas is permitted with the Comprehensive Plan designation. Next slide, please. A neighborhood meeting for this proposed monopine was held virtually earlier this year in March. 3 residents attended the meeting with 2 residents providing feedback. One of the residents in attended preferred a different design that was a clock tower, while one of the residents did express support for the design that was a monopine. On September 11th of 2023, the Land Use Review Commission reviewed this proposal and voted by a vote of 5-0 unanimously with no conditions to support recommending approval of the monopine. Staff has since received comments both in support and in opposition of this proposal, and those have been included as a link in the correspondence folder with tonight's memorandum. Public notices have been provided for this project as required, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Burton-Zetti. Next is the applicant presentation. Would the applicant please come up to the podium and introduce themselves for the record.
Hello, everyone. My name is William Driver. I'll be here representing Atlas Towers today. And I just wanted to give a quick presentation on who we are, why we picked this spot, and how we meet this city zoning code. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So Atlas Towers' mission is definitely trying to service underserviced areas of the country. We work in all parts of the continental United States and Alaska. We are one of the smallest cell tower companies in the country. We control less than 1% of the market share, and we are owned by a wonderful couple named Nate and Randy, who are from Colorado. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. So basically the way our business works is these big carriers we're all familiar with, AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon. They'll give us a little ring on a map where their coverage is not so great. We go and then immediately we check the zoning code of the city, in this case Broomfield, and we find the parts of their code within this ring that are the best for the city. They set their preferences and we just try to follow that to the best of our ability. And then we send out a bunch of leases to members of the town or to the businesses in the community, and whoever gets back to us, we try to negotiate a deal with them and then go through zoning, and then we rent space on the tower to these carriers. So obviously, ideally, we'd have every single carrier in the country because that's better for us, it's better for the community. Right now, this cell tower is signed onto from Verizon. So if you have a Verizon phone, it'll work a whole lot better in this area. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So the reason we picked a monopine design is because the zoning code of Broomfield pushes for camouflage. Also, it's a little hard to see from the speculative photos, simulations that we put forward, but the tree is surrounded by other trees that are similar. We try to pick something that's not going to be too intrusive, not going to be standing out like a big eyesore. That's why we picked behind a King Soopers, where it's out of the way. You could drive past it every day. You wouldn't notice it. And it's just going to make your phone work a little bit better. Here are some examples of towers we've built in the past. From a distance, I promise you, you will not tell the difference. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you so much. So this is the location. I'm sure you're all familiar with King Soopers. A couple members of our team actually used to go there for high school, when they were in high school, to go get snacks. We are a local company. Could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So as you can see here, it's a little hard to tell, but right there where there's two trees kind of just north of the building, you'll see a little tiny square, and that's where we're going to put it. It's well over 64 feet away from any property line. We try to make this, again, as inintrusive as possible. It's next to a bunch of dumpsters and loading bay area for the King Soopers. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, that's just a closer look. You'll see the two facilities there. That's where the carriers come and they put their equipment in. They'll hook up. Right now, like I said, Verizon is signed on, but we have carrier interest from other carriers because this is an area with not great service. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. That's what the fence will look like. And that's what the monopine design is supposed to look like. So again, we try to go with as much branch density as possible. There are some monopines out there, you'll see they'll call it a monopine, but really they'll stick like 3 branches on. And it's like, okay, it just looks like a pole. But we try to put as many branches as we can. We have a much higher density than average. We really try to make sure that these are as inintrusive as possible. We're a Colorado-based company. We're not trying to muck up the skyline or the view. Can we go to the next slide? So we already saw these mock-ups, but if you can go through the next couple ones, these are all going to be different depictions. As you can tell, it just looks like a tree. If we can keep going. From the parking lot, you already can't really see it. It just looks like a tree. So here you can see the coverage map. This is the RF. Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
This is the RF radio frequency coverage map. So green is good and blue is bad. As you can see, there is a huge dip in coverage in this area. This is bad for emergency services like police officers or health professionals who are trying to either receive calls from people who are trying to ask for help or trying to communicate amongst themselves. This is also just good for businesses in the area. They're more interconnected, more ease. Most people don't have landlines now. They're just using their phones. So if we move to the next slide, please. Thank you so much. So like I said, and like the planning committee said, this is a planned unit development. This is the area that this is zoned for. This is a commercial area where this kind of tower is permitted. We meet all setback requirements. In Broomfield, the setback requirement is 100%. We're well over 100% away from any property line. We're not asking for any variance. We're just trying to make sure we can serve the customer in this community and help people call their friends and family and reach out to emergency services if they need it. So if you could please go to the next slide. So like I said, the reason why we picked this spot is mostly because the carrier reaches out to us and gives the ring. And as long as the ring is one half of the Venn diagram and your zoning code is the other half, we find the one little spot where they overlap. And that's where we send all of our leases. Obviously, we can't put it on any parcel. You need the consent of the people who own the land. And King Soopers was kind enough to get back to us. So we were really excited about being able to put it in kind of a more industrial commercial area as opposed to someone's backyard, which I'm sure most of you would prefer in the commercial area that is. So we just definitely tried to make sure we meet the code as much as possible and to, again, make it as unintrusive as possible. So can we go to the next slide? Thank you. If you want to learn more about Atlas Towers, again, we put up cell sites all over the country. Go to our website, go to LinkedIn. If you have really bad coverage, we're always looking for more places, and I'm sure we could talk to you about that. But I think that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much. I was just looking at our city and county manager and going, what about here? And I call this the dead zone on Midway. Forget it if you're on the phone. Yeah, I see so anyway, something to think about. Good to know you. Even though that tree is a little bit more mature than the ones around. I'm just kidding. All right, we'll proceed with public comments. Does anyone have any comments on this item? Please come up to the podium. No, okay. And we're going to go to council comments and questions. Councilmember Marshall-Olson.
I just have one question or two questions, actually. First one is it your tower that's up I-25 going, if you go up north? I think there's one of these monopine cell towers up there.
I'm actually not sure. Most companies are putting up monopines now because of zoning code. I'd have to check with my team, but I'm sure one of us could get back to you and let us know. We have a whole list of all the cell towers we have.
And my second question, can I have one in my backyard?
Yeah.
If you reach out, we got some awesome members of our leasing team right now. I'm sure they'd love to talk to you.
It's all good. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next is Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. I just have one question. I think this is for our planning director, actually. Do we have like a over time? And maybe it's a question for both of you, but like, how do these weather? Like all these branches, because a normal tree would shed branches, but what is our standard for this and how do these weather over time?
So we have to, and as a part of our leases and as a part of approval, we have to make sure it continues to meet the standard of Broomfield. Part of that is camouflage. So the tower itself, the technology there and all the pieces and everything are metal and they hold up to weather pretty well. But if anything happened to the tower, like if the branches started falling off or looking really grody and not like a tree at all, that would mean we wouldn't meet your zoning code anymore. So we would have to go and fix it up and make it look nice again. And as long as we're continuing to get revenue, I mean, we're in Boulder, we have members of our staff who are from Broomfield. We certainly don't want a nasty tree in our neighborhood either. So we would have to refurbish it. But for the most part, I've never heard anything about them getting to the point where it would require refurbishment. A lot of the times when you put up these towers, even in the 80s and the 90s, they're still up. They still look fine. If anything needed to happen, we're right up the road. Definitely reach out and we'd love to fix it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mayor Pro Tem Jezierski.
Thank you. Yeah, I support this project. I think that's an appropriate location. I'm familiar with the Legacy High School area next door, and coverage there is spotty at best. So I think this is great. My only comment that struck me is I'm not so sure about pine trees in Henderson, Nevada as being inobtrusive. So you may want to rethink that. Maybe cactuses or something, but I think pine trees probably stick out there. Thank you.
Maybe a large cactus.
I was thinking.
Yeah. Councilmember Henkel.
Sorry, you guys are making me cry and laugh tonight. This is hilarious. Thank you for being here tonight. And I'm just reading a few of the feedback emails that come from our ward that are right behind King Supers. My child goes to Legacy as well. Sometimes I wish she would just put her phone down a lot more, but I do appreciate this effort. What did King Supers say? Were they super supportive? What was their answer to that?
King Supers is absolutely supportive of this. It's beneficial for both of us. I don't know if you've ever been in a grocery store and tried to Google like the calories or information of the food you're looking at.
The digital
But-
coupons.
Yeah, digital coupons. I mean, the service in grocery stores in general is horrible. Maybe this is the one way to make it actually work. But King Supers is absolutely on board. We have an outstanding deal with them to put cell towers on their property when the zoning code and the ring we get from the carrier will line up. So we have a pre-existing deal with them that we usually like to try to work with. So they're definitely on board.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm always trying to call my husband in there actually, and I can't ever get a hold of him. And I'm like, let's add this to the list, and it doesn't happen. So, and then the second thing, I think, I'm okay with 5G. My husband's in internet security, so we don't have an issue with 5G. We understand it, but just for the public to know, someone wrote in about, health concerns. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, I want to say that the FCC does have a federal preemption when it comes to health concerns. But of course, we meet every level of federal regulation that FCC puts forward. Also, 5G, a lot of the health concerns that you see from people are a little over exaggerated. Not to say that there aren't reasonable concerns. That's why we have a federal regulatory body that looks at these and tests it. The FCC has found no correlation with 5G use and increased negative health effects. So it's definitely something that I know we get a lot in this industry. People are really worried about, but most of that's not really so accurate to the science. And again, the FCC is the one who is primarily in charge of regulating that. We just make sure we live up to their standards, and if we don't, then we end up like losing the tower and everything. So we definitely try to make sure we meet every health and regulatory safety standard that is put out there.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
Speaking of cell phones.
Thank
Thank you.
All
That's it.
right, thank you. Next is Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So question, one of our residents in attendance at the neighborhood meeting stated they prefer the design of to be an altered clock tower. And the other resident that was there preferred the monopine. So I was curious, what was the developer's response to the residents' request to an alter design of, say, a clock tower?
So we usually try to avoid the clock towers just because they end up sticking out a little bit more in my personal experience. And that coupled with the fact that like half the responses we got were from people who were for it, for the monopine, half were, I mean, it was only 2 responses, but we kind of went with the one that we already had just because we had already started drafting up the technical documentation and everything. So I obviously, if there was a conditional approval with changing the design, that's something to be discussed, but yeah, sorry.
So just to clarify, so did you look at another design with that property or just the monopine design?
We look at clock tower designs for every property we go to when it comes to camouflage. We usually try to go with what the landowner prefers, what would be obviously best for Atlas in the community. In this case, I think the landowner preferred a monopine. It seems like most or half the community response we got were okay with the monopine. We definitely have all different kinds of designs and everything that we have to look at. Yeah, sorry.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that information. So last question, I think, if you had mentioned that there could be up to 2 cell service providers coexisting on this monopine, if the design was different, could you add more cell service providers?
If the design was, it would only be a height issue. So the reason we're only able to fit on 2 is because once you get to a certain height, so you have the first carrier is going to be at around 60 feet, 55 feet. The second carrier is going to be about 55 feet because you need a level of space between them or else there will be interference. Once you get down to like 45 feet, 35 feet, there just isn't, you're not going to be really making that much of a difference to the overall coverage map. If we were to increase the tower height or to change it in that regard, that would increase the amount of co-location, but the design wouldn't really play too much of a role in that. In fact, it actually makes co-location harder to do a clock tower design because the antennas are all inside of the clock tower, which requires the technician to go inside quite a tight little space to put it in there. And then on top of that, with having multiple carriers in there, it makes it a little bit more difficult as opposed to a monopine or monopole design, which is a little bit more straightforward as you can just have somebody go up on the side of it without having to slip inside of a fake clock tower.
Okay, so you had mentioned the height. So would that have to be increased over that 64 feet then?
Yeah, it would need to be at least 10 feet higher in order to fit a third carrier.
Okay.
And 20 for a fourth.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering those questions. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, any other questions from council? Seeing none. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution. Oh, the public hearing is closed. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-128. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-128 by title?
11A, resolution number 2023-128, Lambertson Farms, filing number 5, use by special review and site development plan amendment for monopine wireless facility.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Marsh-Holston.
I move that resolution number 2023-128 be adopted.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Henkel.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Hinkle,
Yes.
Jezierski.
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
Lim,
Yes.
Marsh Holston.
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson. Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. All right, moving on. Next, under council business, resolutions related to the 2023 budgets and proposed 2024 budgets for the city and county of Broomfield, the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, and the Arista Local Improvement District. These items will be considered concurrently by City Council, the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority, and the Arista Local Improvement District Board of Directors, which means there'll be one combined opportunity for public comments and council comments. I'll now call to order the meeting of the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority. Will the clerk please call the roll for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority?
Anderson. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Delgadillo.
Here.
Hinkle.
Here.
Jezierski.
Here.
Leslie.
Here.
Lim. Here. Marsh Holston.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Law Evans. Mitchell.
All right, but we still have a quorum. So now I'll call to order the meeting of the Arista Local Improvement District. Will the clerk please call the roll for the Arista Local Improvement District Board?
Anderson. Here. Cohen.
Here.
Delgadillo.
Here.
Henkel. Here. Jezierski.
Here.
Leslie.
Here.
Lim. Here. Marsh Holston.
Here.
Schaff.
Here.
Ward.
Here.
Thank you. Council, Borough, and the Arista Board have copies of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Thank you, Mayor, and walking us through this item. Using the same presentation that you all have seen before, but an abbreviated version of that will be CFO Brenda Ritchie. Ms. Ritchie.
Thank you, Manager Hoffman. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, and members of the board. Brenda Ritchie here this evening. And again, this presentation will combine items 11B as well as 11C for efficiency's sake. And as Manager Hoffman indicated, this is something that we've been discussing for several months at length with the council and the community in terms of our 23 budget, the revisions related to that, as well as our proposed 24 budgets, in addition to the utility rate proposals that we have at hand. So some of that, just from a context standpoint, for our 23 budget as well as our 24 budget, is using available fund balance as well as anticipated revenues for 24 to balance our budget. And then we also have proposed in our 24 budget increases to our utility rates that will also be part of the second item. Moving to the next slide, Kyle, please. So here we have, again, a comparison of our revenues to expenditures, and this excludes our fiduciary funds. And just as a reminder, our fiduciary funds are pass-throughs, so we collect those. Majority of that comes to the city and county of Broomfield that we collect on behalf of other entities and that we pass through. One of the drivers, the main drivers that we see here in the revenues for 24 is related to our carryover balance. So not all of our anticipated planned expenditures occur within that fiscal year. So what they do is they go back to our fund balance and they're made available for the next fiscal year. So that's why you see a large increase in our proposed revenues versus our expenditures. On the flip side, our expenditures, we see increased insurance premiums, factors related to the inflationary factors of goods and services that have impacted our expenditures and projections related to that. The other component that leads into item 11C is related to our infrastructure. So our water and sewer enterprise. It was determined that whether it was federal regulatory, mandates that were required, our aging infrastructure, all led to the necessitation of requesting the proposed amendment and public hearing this evening regarding the sewer and water rates. Next slide, please. And so this slide is to just kind of encapsulate all of our revenue, which comes from all funding sources. So again, here, this slide is really intended to show the various components that Broomfield receives money from all of those sources. Whereas in our next slide, Kyle, is our expenditures. So really a combination of our operating and capital, and then how it's divided among this. So what we see is the incoming revenue for 24, as well as our planned expenditures and where we anticipate to spend those dollars in 2024. Calling out again, our debt payment being only roughly 5% of our overall budget for the city and county. Want to make sure that folks understand this excludes the borough debt because that is under a separate entity and that is its own obligation. So it would not be part of the 29 million, but overall our annual debt payment is approximately 5% of our overall expenditure budget. Moving to our next slide is related to our capital improvement expenditures. So if you recall, this year we took on the initiative and effort to really revise and categorize and prioritize our capital improvement projects and those expenditures. And what we did, as you can see, as illustrated by the pie graph, is related to those categories, determining mandates, obligations, critical and other. So really the focus and the emphasis of all of our funding is really to be providing for those first three buckets, then allowing for if there are other needs. So the first use of our dollars will go towards those obligations and mandates and critical nature. So whether there's an emergency that occurs. And on the left-hand side of the slide, you'll see the breakout between each of the areas that are receiving funding. And again, this encapsulates all of our capital improvement areas. So there will be dedicated funding sources. For example, our open space and parks fund has dedicated funding. 0.25% of the sales tax that comes in is dedicated for these expenses. Same with our public art. We've identified certain elements of our sales and use tax or dedicated funding that's required to be segregated. So it can't be commingled, but you'll see that water infrastructure is one of our top priorities and anticipated expenditures in 2024, which leads to our next slide and item 11C this evening related to the proposed increases for our water and sewer. So the larger graph indicates the proposed impact to our residential customers, while on the right-hand side, those smaller indications. So we anticipate for a single family residence about a $12 on average increase. And again, that will depend on the usage that comes through, but there are some base fees that we are increasing across all customer bases. And then for our multifamily residents, we anticipate, so apartment dwelling, condominium, that sort of thing, where we anticipate that that would be around an $8 potential charge. We are also proposing, staff is recommending a water license increase fee of $1,400, and that is to cover and really keep along with inflation that we're seeing. So keeping it at that additional level was a recommendation at this time. And moving to the next slide, please. And we have, summing it all up is, again, our focus on our investment and commitment, whether it's to public safety, as we see in 2024 with 9 additional FTEs, increasing our commitment to our reserves. So ensuring that Broomfield maintains its fiscal responsibility, being sustainable, having that resiliency. We're adding to our reserves to bring that operational need up to 18% in 2024 with the programmed increase of getting there to 20%. So roughly 3.5 months of operations in the event of something happening. The other component is we've talked about pavement management is looking at, we've increased that budget, in fact, doubled it for 2024, identifying it as critical to address those needs. We heard earlier this evening with the proclamations regarding the unhoused as well as the cold weather shelter. That is in both the 2023 as well as the 24 budgets. There is allocations, whether that's through our human services group or with our economic vitality and housing division. We have identified funds that has increased. And in fact, we increased this evening with the cold weather shelter, the swap agreement, that also increased that obligation and commitment. So again, recognizing the community needs, putting that as part of the budget, we continue to do that. And with that, I believe wraps up our last slide, maybe. Yeah, thank you. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ritchie. We'll now proceed with public comments. If there's anyone who'd like to be heard on this item, please come up to the podium and state your name and neighborhood. Seeing none. Questions from the council, the Arista board, and borough are next. Any questions from council? Councilmember Ward.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. And I know there were a few slides, there was an asterisk at the bottom of the slide as it relates to the water tank project. Noting that particular project, which council has asked a 7-3 decision for you to revisit and come back at a later time, is not included in this particular document. When would council expect a budget amendment to account for that project?
Staff will be coming back on November 14th. With a change in the contract, an amendment to the contract for the design for the fully buried tanks.
All right, and how much is that going to be?
Can't tell you the exact amount. What we're between 700,000 and 800,000.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lim.
Yes, I had two questions on the 2023 Third Amendment to the budget. Let's see. On page 11 of the memo, could you refresh my memory? Under the 2023 revised budget for open space and trails, the budget, the capital improvements for this year was much larger than any surrounding years. Can you refresh my memory why that would be? On page 11 in the 5-year capital project expenditures, it says open space and trails 2023, 10 million.
Councilmember Lim, thank you for the question. We will look into that and give you a response here shortly.
Okay, thanks. And let's see, also in the budget amendment is the attorney 17th district proportional share costs. Could somebody refresh my memory what that's for?
I'll take that one, Ms. Ritchie. Thank you. Thanks for the question, Councilmember Lim. When we became a city and county and joined the 17th judicial district, we pay our percentage population, which is about 12% of Adams County. And so they take their overall 17th judicial budget times 12%. There's conversations about reviewing that type of calculation. We do a deep dive every year, given that's kind of still continues to be near and dear to my heart, which is determining budget based on case count, crime rates, rather than overall percentages, as we continue to see the crime rate in Broomfield go down and the funding continuing to go up exponentially over the last 2 years, as a matter of fact. So more conversations to come when we sit down with district attorney to discuss what some of those options may or may not be.
Okay, great. That's good to know.
Is that it?
I had one question on the 2024 budget. Some of us, I know, at least I don't think I'm the only one who have heard from residents about concerns with sidewalks in certain areas of the city. I was following the sidewalk allocations that were in the 2024 budget and the 5-year CIP budget. And I wondered if anyone was here this evening, any member of staff could explain the criteria for prioritization of those sidewalk projects, and budget-wise, is there a typical amount that's allocated per year for sidewalk projects so that they would follow, okay, we can do one this year. And I also know there's grant funding with DRCOG and different things like that that come into play also. If anybody had that information.
Ms. Allen?
Good evening, Katie Allen, City and County Engineer. Thank you for that question, Councilmember Lim. So we have a bike and pedestrian assessment plan with projects that are prioritized. I don't know if there's a specific sidewalk project you're talking about. I think most of our recent projects have been multi-use paths like Industrial Lane. We have other crossings like at Airport Creek, which I think is probably the answer to your open space funding question also. But generally, we use that document to prioritize bike and ped only facilities.
And how does whether a sidewalk has ADA accessibility taken into consideration factor into any kind of prioritization?
So we have a separate project for ADA ramps to make specific crossings accessible. Is there a specific sidewalk that you're?
Yeah,
I guess I'm trying to figure out how
the
to better
resident,
answer your question.
The resident in question is asking if the 6th Avenue sidewalk is on the radar at all for replacement, since it's near both a park and a school.
It is not. I would suggest you direct them to the CIP project request site so that it will become on the radar and it can be evaluated with the other ones.
Okay.
That is not 5-year.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other council member questions? Councilmember Hoffman.
Not in a million years. Ms. Ritchie, do you have the answer on the open space, the $10 million expenditure this year?
Actually, Miss Allen answered that. It was the Rock Creek Pass. So there was multiple trails that were added this year in the CIP. And that does have actual grant funding as well. So as a reminder, when we have grant funded projects, we fund it full capacity until we receive that reimbursement. So we release that encumbrance. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Mayor. So Forrest Gump, always said life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get. But I would say that life is like a pothole. It's equally surprising and annoying. And, you know, I always hear about potholes, especially those potholes that are located on Highway 287. Some of them are the worst that I ever travel upon. So I think that we have some good news coming up, though, about our potholes in that for the last, 20 years, we've had one pothole truck. And I think that we are looking to double that in the near term, as well as doubling our road surfacing budget. So hopefully providing some good news tonight.
That is correct. And staff has gotten comments and very positive feedback with the mixed bag, you know, how people give you a compliment and then they kind of slap you down at the end, which is, geez, great job. I love driving on Midway now. Everything looks so nice. Took you long enough. But we'll take those upfront compliments and seasonally. Again, it allows us by doubling that budget to really be able to expand that services. And I know Director Rutt and his folks that are sitting back there with their affirmative head shakes, they too are eager to be able to be kind of at the Broomfield standard, and we haven't been for years.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Marshall.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had one question, trying to refresh my memory from our previous conversations. The sidewalks, going off of what Councilmember Lim had said, the sidewalks on 120th. Refresh my memory, those are being addressed through a different program. Is that? Yeah.
I'm gonna have Miss Allen come back down so she can give an accurate reflection of that.
Yeah, that's a federally funded TIP project. We are almost through the clearance stage with CDOT, which means right-of-way clearance and utility clearance. Once we have that, we can go to bid. But it's in process.
And that's on the eastern side of 120th? Or is it where 120th is, I guess?
So it starts just west of Maine and it goes to the city limit on the east side.
Okay,
So to Lowell.
that's okay. And what about on the, do we have anything in the budget this year for the other side of 120th along between Lowell and Maine?
On the north side?
Yeah, on our sides, yeah. Do we have, is there anything in the budget for that area this year?
Sorry. So from Maine to Lowell, we have the infill project. And it addresses all gaps except for areas that are right in front of proposed development.
Okay.
We have a project going right now, which is wrapping up from Maine to Teller.
Right, okay. And sorry, I'm just trying to be clear, in the budget, where the other part of it, where's, you said the infill project?
I think it's called US 287 sidewalk infill.
Thank you. That's all I remember.
All right, thank you. Any other council member questions? I don't see any. Awesome. All right. So due to the need for council, borough, and Arista Local Improvement District to each have separate votes on their respective budget resolutions, I'll ask the clerk to call for 3 separate votes. We'll start with the city's budget resolutions. First is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-132. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-132 by title?
11B, resolution number 2023-132, adopting the third amendment to the budget for the year 2023.
Is there a motion from council that proposed resolution number 2023-132 for the 2023 third budget amendment be approved? And so moved is an acceptable answer. Councilmember Ward.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Shao.
Second.
Someone wrote that in my script. It's so cute because I always ask, is that okay? Thanks, y'all. Is there any discussion? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Delgadillo.
Yes.
Henkel.
Yes.
Jazersky.
Yes.
Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holshan.
Yes.
Schaff.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
And Cohen.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next is council's consideration of proposed resolution number 2023-134. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-134 by title?
Resolution number 2023-134, adopting the budget for the fiscal year 2024 and appropriating sums of money.
Thank you. Is there a motion from council that proposed resolution 2023-134 for the 2024 budget be approved? Councilmember Henkel.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Excellent. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Henkel.
Yes.
Jezerski.
Yes.
Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holshan.
Yes.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
And Delgadillo.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next will be the Urban Renewal Authority's budget resolutions. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-133-UR by title?
Resolution number 2023-133-UR, adopting the Second Amendment to the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority budget for the year 2023.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the authority that proposed resolution 2023-133-UR for the 2023 second budget amendment? Am I on the right one? Yeah, over in UR. It sounds repetitive, but it is. Okay, so yes, is there a motion from the authority that proposed resolution 2023-133-UR for the 2023 second budget amendment be approved? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Chair. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority?
Jezerski.
Yes.
Leslie. Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holshan.
Yes.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson. Cohen.
Yes.
Delgadillo.
Yes.
And Henkel.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-135-UR by title?
Resolution number 2023-135-UR, adopting the budget for the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority budget for the fiscal year 2024 and appropriating sums of money.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the authority that proposed resolution 2023-135-UR for the 2024 budget be approved? Councilmember Schaaf.
Thank you, Chair. So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Ward.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Second. I don't know why I said that.
That's okay. That was good. Thank you. Any discussion on this? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Leslie.
Yes.
Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holshan.
Yes.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Delgadillo.
Yes.
Henkel.
Yes.
And Jezerski.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Finally, we'll consider the Arista Local Improvement District budget resolution. Will the clerk please read proposed resolution number 2023-136-AID by title? Or is that an L?
It's an I.
Okay, thank you. Oh, improvement, yeah, not local. Okay.
Resolution number 2023-136-AID, adopting the budget for the Arista Local Improvement District for the fiscal year 2024 and appropriating sums of money.
Thank you. Is there a motion from the board that proposed resolution 2023-136-AID be approved? Councilmember Ward.
This time it's so moved.
Yes, thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Schaaf.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Lim.
Yes.
Marsh Holshan.
Yes.
Schaaf.
Yes.
Ward.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Cohen.
Yes.
Delgadillo.
Yes.
Henkel.
Yes.
Jezerski.
Yes.
And Leslie.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously too. That concludes the business items before both the Broomfield Urban Renewal Authority and the Arista Local Improvement Board of Directors, and therefore those meetings are adjourned. Next is public hearing and council's consideration on second and final reading of proposed ordinances number 2196 and 2197 relating to monthly water and sewer service charges. I'll now declare the public hearing open. Council has a copy of the agenda memorandum, which I'll ask our staff to summarize.
Ms. Ritchie? You can just say ditto to what I just said.
Thank you.
It was included in the presentation. Unless council has any questions on it.
Oh, anybody have any questions? Wait, oh, public comment? Oh, there is no presentation. Okay, so sorry, yeah. Anybody want to comment on this item? The ordinance is 2196, 2197, water sewer, nothing? Council? Any questions? I'm not seeing any. Oh, all right, we're gonna keep moving. There being no further comments, the public hearing is closed. First is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2196 on second and final reading. Will the clerk please read proposed ordinance number 2196 by title? I'm in a new territory.
11C ordinance number 2196, repealing and reenacting section 13-12-010 and 13-02-020 of the Broomfield Municipal Code to change monthly water service charges and water license fees.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Ward.
I move that ordinance number 2196 be adopted on second reading and ordered published by title.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilmember Marshall.
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Not seeing any. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Marsh Holshin.
Yes.
Schaff,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Leslie,
Yes.
and Lamb.
Yes. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next is council's consideration of proposed ordinance number 2197 on second and final reading. Will the clerk please read proposed ordinance number 2197 by title?
Ordinance number 2197, repealing and reenacting sections 13-12-020 of the Broomfield Municipal Code to change the monthly sewer service charges.
Thank you. Is there a motion? Councilmember Schaaf?
So moved.
Is there a second? Councilmember Ward?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Schaaf,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Cohen,
Yes.
Delgadillo,
Yes.
Henkel,
Yes.
Jaworski,
Yes.
Leslie.
Yes.
Lamb
Yes.
and Marsh Holshin.
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Earlier this evening, council reviewed and approved item 11D on the consent agenda item. So that's done. The city and county attorney's report is next. Deputy Attorney Gilbert, do you have a report?
I do not. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The city and county manager's report, Manager Hoffman.
I do not. Staff is overwhelmingly grateful for this budget process. We know that it has been a difficult journey over the last few years. And it's also hard to move forward with the enterprise funds. And we're grateful for this council being courageous and brave and moving us into the future.
Thank you. There is no legislative update this evening, and items 15A and 16A were reviewed earlier in the agenda. The third quarter expense report for elected officials was provided on this evening's agenda under special reports. And we will take public comments on that if anyone would like to be heard. Not seeing any. We'll move on. There are no requests for future action this evening, concluding the items on the agenda. Is there any other business to come before the council? We didn't even have to take a break. Well, thank you all very much. There being no further business.